Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is John Lawyer. He's a spiritual coach and guide, and he's also the founder of KISHAR.org. Beautiful website, not just website, but it's the door to something much bigger than it looks. So the first question I usually ask, this is that was my introduction. The brief one. The full bio will be at the end of this video. So, a question that I love asking everyone, John, is who are you in this present moment? Who is John?
Man, that's a beautiful question. I'm someone that when you ask me that for whatever reason, I just feel like I'm on a spiritual path, and I'm today, right now, I'm walking that journey with you, and I have gratitude for that, to be able to have this kind of conversation and kind of take life in the universe as it comes,
Yes. What's not to love about that? There's something playful about that. I was going through everything that you have written, your videos and the website, and then I came across messages like being in the moment. It's something that we hear all the time. It almost became something way too common. But there's so much truth in that. Like in this moment, there's nothing missing. This feels very complete. Everything is here. And even when you talked about feelings, so even what emotions, feelings, whatever is here, they are welcome. Just welcome them. Let them come and go. So that has been said too by so many spiritual teachers and even therapists these days. What is that about us human that some of us don't get that message, don't get to experience life in that way?
That's a good question, because we do tend to think about everything except the present moment. We think about our past, and we think about the future, right? And our finances or our relationships. And I think a lot of it, I believe a lot of it comes down to the fact that our mind and ego are these things that have kept us alive for thousands of years. They're really great at it. They're amazing at it. And they're very necessary, but they overperform. They overperform by design, because they're trying to keep us alive. They're trying to keep us safe. And they tend to trend negative to do that. And if we can just recognize that, suddenly we're like, oh, you're right. Like, okay, my mind and ego are overperforming. They're having all this stuff come through my mind that some of it's useful, but a lot of it, I just need to say, okay, quiet down, kind of stay in your domain in the corner over there, and I can be more alive in the present. I think that, to me, that's the key, is finding that balance.
Yes. Yeah. That really resonates true to me from the human experience, right? Seeing, being able to experience all the parts and the thousands of things. So when you say mind and ego, what is that in relation to, let's say, what I call pure consciousness, or that energy that holds the ground of existence, or existence itself? So how do we learn with the mind distinguish those energies?
Yeah, that's key, right? And everyone's going to see it differently. That thing deep inside us, that pure consciousness, as you describe it, that's also how I see it. I call it the universe, but it's the same thing as that base consciousness, that universal oneness of everything, that we're all tied together. Like I said, some people call it that self with a capital S deep inside of us. It's nature or God. It could be big God, with big G, little g. It doesn't matter, right? It's the divine, and it could be the Tao or the Brahman. Right. It's all these different words from all these different cultures and beautiful spiritual constructs that we have from around the world. But it's that thing that means that we are something more than our mind. We're something more than our body. Even science knows that consciousness sits probably, Max Planck, the father of quantum physics, talks about the fact that science can't get behind consciousness, but that everything they see postulates that consciousness exists, and that matter Everything that we are made up of sits on top of consciousness. And
Yeah.
so even science will even give you a little bit of that answer as well.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. I have been listening to a lot of scientists on that too, who tend to be interested in spirituality and consciousness, they call it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are using words here. One of the, I can't wait to share with the audience how you came to these understandings too, because I know this is something that we, for some reason, it's not something that it's hidden, but it's always there, that truth. But for the reason that you've been speaking about now, the mind, there's something about us that gets fascinated in a way, distracted and with other, it's almost like with the reflection of itself. So it's almost like looking in the mirror and thinking that I am the mirror. I am what's inside in the mirror and not the one here. So what do you think happened there? Is that God forgetting itself? Would you say that that's the play, the dance of the universe, of life, this which we call life?
I think life is balance, right? I think that I believe that we are the universal balance moving through the universe. Like, so we are the balance of the universe, and there's light on one side, there's darkness on the other. I think we have to respect both and realize that both exist. I think we have power over where we turn our gaze and our attention. You know, it's that phrase of where our mind goes, our energy flows, right?
Yeah.
But I think darkness and having some issues in life, some suffering, some pain, that gives contrast to the light. So I think that's why you see a lot of spiritual teachers and guides and coaches end up having this past that has had some difficulty in it, because I think that does awaken something in people to see light and see perspective and have a certain perspective.
Yeah, so talk to me about your journey. I know nothing about war. I know war within, yes, coming from a family, a lot of violence and abuse and all that, but not the way you have as a teenager, somebody's an adult, a young adult going through something, knowing,
Right.
kind of knowing what you could face, right, by doing that. So why did you make that choice? I wonder why so many people make the choice of going to war.
When I was growing up, I was really influenced by the first World Trade Center bombing back in '93. I was a kid,
Yeah,
and I would wonder, why would people do something like that, you know? And I wanted to understand it. I wanted to do counterterrorism, is what I kind of got me into taking that path. And I had watched Lawrence of Arabia as a kid, and that I kind of wanted to do what Lawrence did and meet people and try to understand the world. And I mean, and there's also a romantic thing about war that I think the youth have, sometimes. And I don't have that anymore, obviously. I think when the first shot is fired, you know, you have a completely different perspective on it, right? But you can't tell a kid that necessarily. And so I joined straight out of high school, and yeah, I would spend out of the first 15 years of my young adult life, I spent 12 of those years in Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And I really, it was an idealistic, altruistic thing where I kind of wanted to make the world a better place. And I learned a lot of lessons along that altruistic path. So
yes. So what is your suggestion now for so many of us who still think that way? You know, even myself, sometimes I feel like I'm supposed to help people and do this, knowing that there's no really people out there, but just one essence, one ground of existence. Yeah, I guess the question is, what is your suggestion to the mind when it comes to that desire, that longing?
I'd say if you want to make the world a better place, if you want to do something like that, then start with yourself. And I think the only way that we can change the world is to change ourselves, is to be there for ourselves. I think it's massive self-love, you know,
Yes.
is the only way. Because if we are, and it's not selfish, just the least selfish thing in the world, to take care of yourself, to be there for yourself. Because then when you lift yourself up, you're lifting the whole world up around you. And we literally can change the world by changing ourselves.
That's such a powerful message and reminder, right, John? Because we tend to forget here in the human body mind, we tend to forget that. I think that's because of the other desire, longing to connect, to experience connection with others and not disappoint and be loved by them and love back and all that. So, that idea of love and connection. What is your understanding of love when it comes to that kind of desire to love others and connect with others? Why do we cling to that so much?
I think love is the pure energy of the light part of the universe. I think that's what light in the universe is love. And it's this energy, it's this intangible thing that you can't see, but you can feel.
Yeah.
I believe in magic. I don't think magic is this supernatural thing. I think magic is this perfectly natural thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think magic can go both ways of the universe, but I think that there's this magical side of love, this love side of magic, this light side of magic. And it's that thing that binds nature together. And we are nature, right? We're not just in nature, we are nature. So that's what love is for me.
Yes. There's something that another thing caught my attention. Earlier in your own life experience, you had a moment of clarity, you call it, in high school, the power of kindness, you call it. So talk to me about that.
It was a spiritual moment. I didn't know at the time. I didn't know it was spiritual, but I was sitting in class in high school in ninth grade as a freshman, and I was kind of an awkward. I had friends and but I was a kind of weird a little bit. And then suddenly it occurred to me like, oh, kindness. And I was already a kind person, but I understood how kindness could be used to interact with people on this meaningful level and kind of wavelength. And so I completely changed the way that I interacted with people, and I let go of a lot of anger and resentment from being maybe marginalized or bullied at times. And I let go of it all, and I was just nice to people and kind. And I would be that way from there on out, even through war and all my times in the desert. And it's kind of served me in this beautiful way. I've had my moments where I'm probably not kind, but for the most part, I have held true to that.
Yes. I love the name of your company, your community, online community, KISHAR. And hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. I know I asked you off record, KISHAR. Yeah. So talk to me about that. It's I know it's an online spiritual community, but what was the main purpose of creating that space?
When I had my moment of understanding or clarity, I knew my purpose was to kind of help people help themselves, find their wholeness within, find their light, even if they didn't see it. They were just, it is there. And I felt like there was room. I had this kind of awareness. There's room in the digital age for authentic, meaningful connection, just like you and I are having right now. Like there's room for this, and we can have a community even if we're in different places and doing different things. And that whether you're a Christian or a Hindu or an atheist, it doesn't matter. We could probably stand together and have conversations and practice our own personal, fiercely individual beliefs, but do it walking together. And I wanted to create a place for that. I like I said, I felt if I could share my journey, have people share theirs with me, and maybe if people would spend less time wondering than I did through pain and suffering, then maybe I could help with that as well. And I wanted to create a place for that. So like we created this nonprofit online spiritual community, and we called it KISHAR, which is the Sumerian goddess of Mother Earth or Gaia, that divine feminine. And we offer a community space. We offer, individual spiritual coaching and guidance. But it was really just about a place where people can be themselves and discover their spirituality or expand their spirituality and figure out how that aligns with their mind, body, soul, and their life.
Right. Yeah, it's a beautiful place. I love the design. It's just it presents itself too. It's another reflection of what are you doing. What you're up to with those energies, universal energies. It's really, truly beautiful. I want to go through some of the information there in a moment, the core principles, the pathways. You have so much information there, and some of them caught my attention. So, but before that, going back, talk to me about that moment of clarity again you had when you were young, a child, about kindness. And then something else happened. That was in September of 2021. I would love to have more. Usually I don't ask for details here, but for some reason I'm asking you for details and I'm not a detail person, but yes, could you
Uh,
share more details that experience?
yeah, it was like a bolt of lightning, completely unexpected. I think we're all on a path, a journey, whether we know it or not, but I didn't know it. So I hear this thing happens to me. I'm laying in bed late at night. My wife's asleep next to me. And I just had this understanding of the oneness of the universe, that we're all connected, and a loving kindness, sense of loving kindness. And I knew what my higher purpose or my dharma was. And
Uh,
it was an interesting moment for me because I wasn't in spiritual circles. I didn't know the vocabulary and the back. So I had a lot of reading and studying to do, Valeria. It was
I know you did.
it was, so I tried to learn as much as I could so that I could have conversations just like this.
Yes. Something in you already had that understanding, that depth of what this experience, is or it is all about. So how do we learn to recognize that? Because some people don't have those spontaneous experiences. We call them mystical experiences, spiritual experiences. Doesn't happen to all of us, and I wish it did. So how do we learn to recognize, like within your community, how do you guide them to recognize uh, this truth that's sitting there, that's never left any one of us? Yeah, I'm wondering how you guide them.
I asked people to kind of search within themselves and take slow things down. And I also think to be able to talk about spirituality in a way that it's not too, it is metaphysical, it is esoteric. I love talking about that aspect of it, but also it's something you can reach out and touch. It's there in you.
Mm.
And if they slow things down, they can get this essence of it, you know?
What does it feel like, John, when we are in touch with it through meditation or some talking conversations, talking to somebody like you, or just in deep reflection? How do we get to, yeah, what does it feel like? What does it look like, per se?
It is, I think there's a base calmness and peace about it.
Mm.
It's knowing that it really is knowing that we're more than this physical form, but knowing that this beautiful physical form that we inhabit, that it is connected to that source.
Mm.
And I think that's when you get into like, because it's just like I'm a universalist and a nominist, but I'm big into Hinduism as well, and it's that idea of yoga is important with the poses and that somatic aspect of it, but it's the spiritual part of where that takes us. It takes us to this calm, peaceful connection with source and the universe or the divine or God.
Mm.
And that and it really is that connection with things that starts to come out. And there's so many different tools to take us there. It's almost overwhelming. So we have to figure out what works best for us.
That's
As
true.
far as that ritualistic bridge between this concrete world we're in and that bridge that we take to our spiritual self.
That's true, though. There are many ways to get there. And I remember going through myself through the healing practices, doing a lot of energy work and trying to release a lot of the trauma and all that. But some of those experiences actually didn't help. And I remember feeling more anxious and more actually connected to the past and living in the past than in the present moment. So do you connect the sense of peace to being present? I mean, and we talked about that before. And I will have to answer that for you. I'm sure you connect that sense of peace of being here now, being present. So is that something it becomes a practice then for the rest of our journey, destination? Or this is something that at some point we let go, we are able to let go of practices and just become it?
That's it though, right? You just said it, like letting go. Because I was just thinking that as you were talking, I was like, what it comes down to, it's not being present in the moment. Isn't this effort that you're like, I got to be present. It's not that. It's, I think people think it's that sometimes when they're reading books about it or studying it, but you know what it is? It is letting go. It's
Mm.
letting go of that stuff from the past and saying, man, I don't care about that stuff from the past anymore. I don't care. I care about what's happening tomorrow from like a larger perspective. I'm going to do my future self a solid and make sure that I'm paying bills or I'm have a place to
Yeah.
live or, whatever.
Yeah.
But really it's about letting go of all those attachments, all that weight. It's non-judgment of yourself and
Mm.
others. It's forgiveness of yourself and others, right? That's the having grace for yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. What's not to love about the idea of letting go, right? Surrender. That's
Yeah.
another word a lot of people
Oh
use,
yeah.
right? To surrender to this, to this, what's happening now, being able to be here. There is there's something to do with surrendering, because we can't really surrender if we are not present, because there's so much happening here that's worth our attention in a way that's so beautiful. And that why are we going to the past and the future all the time? So that you spoke of attachment, so that has to do with attachments, right? And perhaps even karma. I have heard that before too. Like some of the Hindu teachers that are around me, when somebody asks them a question, why are you doing this? And it's so much work, working as a monk. I mean, it's so much work. And that's what they say. It's karma. It's my karma. So what is your interpretation of karma, John?
It's one of the most beautiful things in the world because it speaks to reciprocity.
Yeah.
And I think reciprocity is that idea of exchange. And it goes back to that balance of light and dark. And,
Mm, mm,
what we put out, we get back. And whether you're a Hindu or you could be a Wicca and say, what I do, good or bad, comes back to me 3 times, right? The pagans. And so it's all over indigenous culture. It's all over those base writings that go back, 4,000 or 5,000 years to the Vedas and
mm,
before probably. And it is this thing that says what I put out comes back to me.
mm,
And how can there be anything more beautiful than, I think that also I think it's personified, and you look at the golden rule around the world, right? Whether it's in Hinduism in verse or Buddhism or Christianity, there's a form of the golden rule throughout all spiritual constructs and religion and even philosophy. So what
yeah.
we put out comes back to us. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And like I said, it's reciprocity, which I think is the greatest thing.
The only thing about karma that concerns me is that some people, they actually behave in a certain way, in a nice way, because they're afraid of the consequences. So fear will
Yeah.
help us, right? To be
No.
coming from fear. So how do we learn to just do it out of love and not out of fear?
The universe really, I think the universe rewards and appreciates authenticity.
Mm,
And I think if we're authentically doing something because it's the right thing to do by our values, beliefs, and our sense of self and our sense of that connection with
mm,
the oneness of the universe or the
yeah.
Brahman or whatever it is, I think when we're authentic like that, that's the true karma. That because you're putting it out there because you truly believe it. And that means what you receive back is going to be authentic as well.
Yes. I love connecting with people, but having deep conversations, it has to be deep, because I'm not good with small conversations. I'm the worst. So, and then I love going deeper and deeper and deeper, but some people are not able to. And then I have to stop at some point with some of the connections that I have, people that I meet. So how do I, like in my case, how do I learn to be authentic when it comes to ending the conversation when I see that the other person's not interested anyway? But how do I honor this ongoing kind of longing to express the truth and dancing around the truth? And, because I'm a truth lover, so I don't like the idea of leaving things out or trying to go around using words and all that. So do you have that as an experience for yourself, as your own experience? Or what would you suggest or recommend? Like in my case, if I was one of your students.
Yeah, we're all seekers and students and teachers all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, yeah.
that's a beautiful thing. I think as we walk this journey that we're all on, this path, it is about being true to ourselves. And I think if we're not being true to, Shakespeare said, "To thine own self be true," but that's been said by every culture and
Right.
civilization throughout time, right? But that's it.
Yeah.
It's if we're being true to ourselves, I'm the same way. If I go into a party, I don't like small talk. If I go into a group, a new family, a different family that I haven't seen in a long time, I don't like small talk. I don't know how to do small talk. I'm not very good at it. I'd rather just be like, hey, what do you think about the universe?
Yes.
So I think we have to be there's fear there, I think, about being true to ourselves. Like, can I go be myself, my authentic self? Can I express myself in the way that I think that I'm meant to express myself?
Mm.
And I think we have to overcome that fear. We have to accept it and move through it. And then, we still have to have tact. We're still living in the real world, right? So there's tact. But for
Yes.
the most part, it's just being true to ourselves and how we interact with others in the world. And I think people respond to that in a very natural way, where we often have these fears of being ourselves that we break through, and we're like, oh, people accept me for who I am. They accept me for what I am and what I'm saying and what I'm demonstrating.
What a wonderful thing to just kind of have a conversation about it, even. So, but that's that dance again between connecting with others and, living in the world where it's built by societies. We have communities. We can't really survive really on our own. And at the same time, it is important to be alone, even if we have to go on that right on the path alone. If it is necessary, we have to have that courage. So, yeah, I'm wondering what the balance is. I think you have found that. I think I have found at some level. I have found that too. Although I have a lot of conversations here that are about more therapy, and they're different. But I always bring this concept of non-duality into the conversation. Always. I can't help it. I guess I asked the question because that's connected to wisdom, and I have heard that before. The wisdom to know when to stay silent. Stay silent because you can't really force anything. We're not here to kind of have people join us in this understanding. But I think that it goes back to what we talked about earlier about being that, right? Becoming peace, becoming what we are trying to express. So it has to be an embodiment of that truth.
That's pretty powerful.
Right, to be the embodiment of truth.
Yeah.
And then the question is, how much of that can we really embody, right? How can we embody the unlimited, the infinite?
And I think even a lot of the great teachers, especially more modern ones, like even like take Ram Dass, right? Like there were times where he would be out speaking on his tour and at a college, and he's this calm, chill guru dude, but he would still get frustrated if the mic didn't work, So.
Yes, right. Yeah. Oh, he's funny. I laughed a lot watching him and listening to him. He was super funny. So let's see. Questions. Yeah. Talk to me about the core principles of KISHAR. So you speak of 3 pillars: embracing the now, discovering our Dharma, grounded living. Grounded living, that really caught my attention. I know we talked about the 2 items here, but so the way you speak, I love the way you speak, because if I'm paraphrasing you talk about being so grounded that we are able to live that truth, that we are able to explore and be in alignment with that which we know to be true. So talk to me about that. How do we ground ourselves? What is the best way to do it on a daily basis?
I love this part of any conversation, and I don't always get to have this, so I appreciate you asking that question because I think it's really insightful. We have these, I call them like lifestyle, like life blocks. I call them the blocks of life blocks. So there's sleep, and there's nutrition, and there's health and wellness, and there's relationships, finances. There's all this stuff, right, that is in our life that isn't overtly always considered spiritual, but if we're not grounded and centered on this base that we build for ourselves, the chances of us walking an intentional and aware spiritual path is really low. We're gonna slip. We're gonna fall. We're gonna take steps back. So if we're aligned in mind, body, and soul, and not just soul, then we're gonna have more peace and calm to take this journey we're on, to be intentional, to be aware, to be present, to have gratitude and grace for ourselves. And so I believe that intersection between this spiritual journey that we're on and this day-to-day, because I always say it, most of us aren't going to be a monk living at the foothills of the Himalayas,
Right.
So how do we live in this concrete world that we share with others? And I think it's really important.
Yes. So it's very practical. That's what the idea that I got. Do you actually guide people into exercise, diet, how to go about, how to eat, and all that? Or this is something that's up to them? You just give them the foundation, and then they do the rest.
I do work with people as a guide and coach on some of that at times, and my wife does as well. And it's really basically what someone needs and wants. Do they want help with that? Do they want more accountability in a part of their lives? I think sometimes we need help to I know I do better if I'm trying to exercise or eat right, if my wife's helping me, right? So it's about what works best for each person. I think it's everything. Yeah, I think we can't approach helping someone in any type of cutout sort of way. It has to be there can be some methodology to it, but there has to be some real give and take. And I think it helps if the person is willing and vulnerable and wanting to move forward. Right, is part of it as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Being open, it's very, very important. So, yes, this is something I noticed within myself, my own experience, is that the more grounded I feel in that wholeness, knowing that I'm already whole, complete, that I'm already there, placeless there, then something happens. Then that flows into that sense of it gives me a sense of harmony, the balance that you speak of. And that kind of inspires me to take better care of the body, of the mind and the thoughts, be more mindful, that more meditation. But it's always the foundation for me has been the spiritual understanding. So once I realized that, then everything else just falls into place. I think that needs to be addressed. It's that correction. I don't know. Have you heard about A Course in Miracles? This
oh yes,
this book?
Absolutely.
Have you read that, John?
I haven't read it all the way through. I have read summaries of it, and I've watched a lot of stuff on it. It's one that I definitely want to read all the way through. But yeah, I'm familiar with. It's this big thing.
Yeah, I know you just mentioned the body, the giving us the sense of groundness, and it does. That's been my experience too. But for some reason, I keep going back to the mind again, trying to correct the mind every time it looks at something that perceives as something else, and I always correct it. No, that's not something else. That's you.
Right.
That's God everywhere. So I don't know. Do you? That's something that you also talk to your community about, the correction of perception with the mind.
Yeah, I think perception and mind and our perspective, I think, are these incredibly important things. And our mind, it's really important that we're aware and intentional with how our mind interacts. And like emotions and feelings and thoughts, these are positive things usually. Right. Like we can use them. And I think the more we learn how to use them, the less control they have over us, Our mind's amazing. Like it allows us to inhabit this world, this pretty cool world we live in. So how do I work with my mind so that it is aligned with my soul and my spirit and my body? And that the mind is so critical because it's so central to the way that we understand that things work. I think base consciousness that we were talking about in the beginning is more important than that. But in the beginning, the mind is the most important because without having it on board, we're never going to get anywhere.
That's true. So it's training the mind, isn't it?
Yeah. It's working. It's training it, working within the confines of how it thinks and acts.
Yes. That's what I wish for all of us one day, to kind of live in freedom, where we are so grounded in that pure consciousness that we don't need to practice anymore. We just become that here. Do you have that as a vision, that one day we can get there as humanity?
I do believe that. I have great faith and great hope in humanity. I think that there is a collective consciousness. I think that it does rise and fall and rise. And whether it's Pierre Teilhard de Chardin or whoever, talking about that collective consciousness of humanity that will eventually be enlightened. And I mean, even if you look at Judaism And the Jews think that if they do mitzvahs or good deeds, that is bringing humanity towards the light.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing, right, that we're talking about. It's that if we all do our part to change ourselves and be there for ourselves and love ourselves and change ourselves, then we're changing the world. Then suddenly, yes, the whole world lifts up and can become this more enlightened, better place.
Yes, yeah. And it felt this way when COVID, I know there was a lot of chaos happening there. For some reason, my experience was completely different, was of greater peace, actually. And I cannot explain why, but it just changed my environment in a way that was so much for better. Everything just became more clear to me. And then I heard about this movement that the energies were shifting, that we are coming into this higher consciousness space. And then I heard the news about the war between Russia and Ukraine. So that was kind of the mind couldn't understand. So I was like really shocked. How do you interpret this? What's happening now in our reality, shared reality, all the wars?
I work with myself on that quite a bit because I was as a counterintelligence special agent, I was into geopolitics and I studied that as a pastime and hobby as well.
Yeah.
And I've moved away from that a lot. And I've tried to move away from nationalism. And the one thing that I saw, I was part of the military industrial complex for 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's this dark thing, right? What I realize is that we're all just human. It's not I'm American or I am Russian or I'm Chinese or Afghan. It's I'm human, and we're all just trying to live our lives. And I think we have to look at the world and think there's dark things happening.
Yeah.
But I think we have to embrace the fact that darkness doesn't define us. There's all these great, amazing light things happening. I think we don't get enough of that because of the way that it goes back to the mind and ego trending negative. Our news and our sources of information trend that way because that's what our mind wants to hear.
Yes.
There's part of it that needs it. And so I think we have to escape that and tell ourselves that there's people being born every day. There's people graduating college and getting the job they always dreamed about and finding their spiritual self or healing from a disease.
Yeah.
And you and I we don't believe in this anthropomorphic God or anything, that there's this humanistic God, right? It's just the universe being the universe. It's just,
Oh yeah.
And there's free will. I think it gets down to we have choice. We always have a choice. And there's people out there that make choices that we don't agree with. But all I can do is I can understand that if I go talk to my neighbor, regardless of what political affiliation he is or I am or what we disagree on, we probably agree on about 90% of things.
Yeah.
So how can we let that 10% define how we see the world?
Yes. How do you experience reality? What is your experience of reality? Because that's yours, right? It's very unique.
For me, I strongly, strongly believe that our individual consciousness creates our individual reality. I think that our individual consciousness is part of that collective consciousness, but there's also an individual aspect of it. Almost like we create this bubble of reality that we move through.
Yeah.
And our bubble of reality can be bigger or smaller.
Yes.
Or more pliable or more hard than other bubbles. And then we bump around other people's bubbles, and that creates the collective that we walk through. That's and I strongly believe that. And that's why I believe in magic, because I believe if I believe something enough, it will happen. I mean, we get lost in manifestation or law of attraction or The Secret. It's not, it's not about Ferraris and $1 million, right? It's about something much more meaningful than that. So we definitely create our reality. I wholeheartedly subscribe to that.
Yes. When it comes to that, right, the individual understanding of reality through the mind, filtered through the mind, right? Yeah. We're not talking about pure consciousness, which you said, I love the way you said that too. The universe doing what it does, life doing what it does, God doing what it does. We can't really understand that now with the mind. So yes, I had the same feeling Well, I had a strong feeling when I got to experience the news about the war, and then the body, mind felt disappointed
Yeah.
because we live in a world that it seems to be technologically advanced, that humans are becoming more intelligent. But then all of a sudden, there seems to be like a step back. Why would we kill one another?
And I want to share with you that I had a real hard time with the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I I felt great empathy for the Ukrainian people.
Yeah,
I had great empathy for the Russian soldiers, the men that died as well.
yeah,
It got to me as well. So I don't want to. When I talk about we have to see the good in the world, I struggled with that when it happened. I've come to terms and peace with it, but I just want to kind of add that in because it's important to say out loud.
yes. So there's something about the word that you use, balancing, the balance of that is very important. Okay, I do have this realization. I know this God just playing around, but at the same time, why not help somebody that just fell from a bike, or I don't know, a cat that's abandoned. I mean, that just to me is common sense. It's just automatically you want to do that. And why I know the universe is maybe the cat wants to have that experience of being lost for a while. But there's something about, love that wants to nurture, it wants to care for. We just care. And that's the heart's energy, I guess, too, that comes in. And I think it has to do with your work, has to do with the divine feminine. Is that what, actually, I want to ask you that question. Is that how you explain this, the divine feminine within your work?
Yeah, I definitely see the divine feminine in the work that I do and the work that our co-founders do. It's very Mother Nature. It's very Gaia. It's very um, soft.
Yeah.
I think we need form. We need to have boundaries and stuff and all that. I believe in all that, but I think there's a softness that we have to have in order to kind of gain some perspective on this world that can kind of move us to that next phase.
Yes. Yes, we do need that softness. I agree. So it is, in a way, John, the combination of truth and kindness, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being able to, like you just mentioned earlier, about being authentic. So you're not hiding, you're not afraid of being you, but at the same time, being kind about it. It's that practice of, like, keep done and forgotten. I think that's what comes to mind in Buddhism, in Zen Buddhism. I never forgot that because I have practiced that for a while. And I remember they used to say, done and forgotten. So the practice of just you do what you're here to do and then you just forget it. You just let go and surrender to whatever the result might be. So I think it's that dance, isn't it? When it comes to moving on to the next stage, if there is one, although I like not to think about the future. Oh, evolution is something that will happen, I don't know, in years from now, but it's already here. It's just a matter of seeing it, just shifting the attention, kind of correcting the mind, as the Course in Miracles say. I don't know. Does it make sense to you? Any of that?
It makes a lot of sense to me. I believe that it in all of that, and that it is here and now, uh, and we do change, we do evolve. That's the motion of the universe, right? And that's okay.
So, like, talking to you now about these things, it's nothing really. It seems like it never left me. It has been always the same. That ground of existence, kind of
Sure.
uh, being curious about itself. It's almost like the again the playfulness of existence. Like, oh, I exist, but who am I? And then kind of looking back, this almost like looking at itself. So that never changed. So from that perspective, I don't know. It feels like it's been always the same. But then when I look at the body, and of course, when I look at the mind way it thinks now, it's different. It has evolved. But there's something here that never ever changed. It never changes. It's always the same. That might be what they call it, pure consciousness and existence itself.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're in. It almost sounds like you're in touch with all those previous cycles of life, the birth and rebirth, and
Uh,
uh, like past life. I mean, I don't get big into past lives and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
do believe in old souls, though. I do believe that. I believe in that. I don't talk about it a lot, but
Right.
I think there are older souls that are more receptive to the experiences that we've had, and I that almost sounds like that's a little bit of what was going on in that as you were talking.
Yes, yeah. So have you actually done, I know you did hypnosis, didn't you? I think I read that somewhere, John. So that kind of brings you back. A lot of hypnotherapy brings you back and to this lifetime, experiences in this lifetime. And sometimes without even spontaneously, you go to experiences you never actually you had, but you don't remember them. Have you had those experiences too?
I haven't had it with hypnosis, but I've had some experience with hypnosis, but not with past lives. But I definitely have a feeling like I lived before. My parents used to tell me I was an old soul. I think I know that I haven't always been a man. I've been a woman before, you know,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So like there's parts of it that shine through, and I think sometimes we have that intuition, that core base thing that inform us is that universal connection. But so I think some of that is our past. It's our
Mm.
I mean, we don't have to get into it too much, but it's that samsara of working towards enlightenment. You know, that's the cycle that cycle that we're on from a Hindu perspective. So yeah, I definitely have felt that.
Yes, and I think we all have. We probably all of us have the feeling that we have been here before, but we are not really willing to talk about. We are a little shy about the, we are not sure even. So I want to mention before we say goodbye. I know we're almost at the end of the interview. I want to mention the four different plans that you offer. I don't have the details here, but I know we have four of them there on your website. And you have also what is inside, which I have here as services and offerings. So the life blocks courses, you offer community forums, exclusive content, spiritual guidance and coaching, accountability programs, retreats to in weekly live events. Did I miss anything, John?
No, that's pretty all encompassing of what we do. Yeah.
So it sounds like a wonderful playground for the soul, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Another one.
absolutely.
So
That's a
thank you
great
for
way to describe it.
yeah, thank you for the invitation. And before we say goodbye, I want to mention your website again, KISHAR.org, and I'll have that on the podcast notes. And actually, before we say goodbye, there's a question that I ask everyone not everyone these days, but I'll ask you. What three experiences you wish everyone to have before they lose the body, before they die?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. I would say unconditional self-love is the first thing I would say.
Yeah.
Um, I would also say to enjoy everything that our current world and reality has to offer, which is a ton. It's a lot. There's so much beauty out there. It's amazing.
Yes.
You can see the divine in it or hear it or feel it. And so that would be the second. And then the third, I would say the path is often lonely, but there's warmth and community. Take advantage of that on your path.
Mm.
And it could be one person that's your community. It
Mm.
doesn't matter, but go find it for yourself because it can be warm. It doesn't have to be lonely. It
Yes.
often is. It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
You almost, no, you didn't make me cry. Something about that got me emotional. Yes, it can be lonely. And that's something that always makes me emotional. The body mind kind of activates something in it. I
Yeah.
think because, yeah, that's how I felt for so long in this experience here since I was a child, lonely. How come no one seems to understand? Kindness was one of the things. Yeah, I remember when I left my the house that I grew up with my family, they were abusive and all. They years later, I remember they remembered me in a kind way, that how kind I was, and I remembered them being so violent, and that's one thing they remembered about me. And I actually wish that they had forgotten me altogether, and I was trying to escape the whole thing. But they came back to me, and they would say that. And they would talk about kindness. Anyway, so I felt lonely because that was not something that it was not a shared reality, kindness, love. It was just so disconnected. So yes, it has been. I think it gets me emotional because it has been my experience, and not anymore. Thank to you, amazing people here on the podcast, this creation here, and the books that I write and the people that I meet, but also because I have found that place that's already complete. So that's my really my place to go to return to every time, that ground of existence, God. So thank you so much again, John, for being you, for being open to this, to life itself, for being life itself. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Valeria. You shine so brightly, and I truly appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation.
Yes, me too. Thank you. So we'll be in touch again. I would love that. Bye for now, John.
Bye.